The Grand Convergence Hall was brighter than anything Nathan Hale had ever seen. Light shimmered off every surface, bending in ways that made the air itself seem alive. Crystalline beings floated gracefully above the floor, their bodies catching and refracting the light like living jewels. Others had skin that shifted color with every emotion, moving like ripples across a pond. The hall echoed with the hum of voices, a melody that Nathan couldn't quite understand but felt in his chest. Nathan adjusted his plain Earth uniform and stepped forward, trying to look confident. He had been sent as Earth's first envoy to the Thalari Empire, a civilization that spanned hundreds of star systems. They were known for their intelligence, elegance, and a strict sense of formality. Nathan was nothing like them. He was human, tall, a little awkward, with hands that tended to fidget. But he had been trained for diplomacy, and he reminded himself that the galaxy needed humans now more than ever. He moved carefully through the crowd, careful not to touch anything. Many of the delegates regarded him with curiosity or mild amusement. A few whispered among themselves, pointing at his plain uniform. Nathan caught snippets of words that sounded musical and strange, and he could feel the weight of dozens of eyes on him. At the center of the hall, on a raised platform of glowing crystal, sat the Thalari princess Cathara. She was radiant, her form a mixture of light and delicate shapes that seemed to shift as she moved. Her attendants hovered around her, shimmering beings who seemed to be part of her aura. Nathan's first impression was that she was impossibly beautiful, and yet there was something else, an intelligence, a curiosity that seemed to pierce right through him. He felt a chill in his chest, a mixture of fear and awe. Nathan was about to take a step closer when a loud commotion erupted from the far side of the hall. One of the Thalari delegates had grown angry over a trade agreement, waving his elongated hands in frustration. The crowd's hum shifted into tense murmurs, the light around them flickering with unease. Nathan froze, unsure if he should intervene. He knew it was risky. Humans were not always trusted in these situations. But before he could think further, he heard himself speak. "Perhaps we can find a solution that makes everyone happy." His voice sounded steadier than he felt. He stepped closer to the arguing delegate and then added, "Sometimes it helps to start with a smile." There was silence. Nathan realized he was still speaking in English and no one around him would understand. Then something miraculous happened. The Thalari delegate's expression softened. The others in the crowd began laughing softly, a musical sound that seemed to ripple through the hall. The anger faded. Nathan had no idea why, but somehow his tone, his presence, had calmed the entire room. From her throne, Princess Cathara's eyes widened. She rose slightly and the crowd's laughter faded as everyone noticed her movement. She turned to her attendants, her voice clear and resonant, though Nathan could not understand the words. Then with a gesture that made the air shimmer, she pointed at him. One phrase floated above the crowd in a strange glowing script that he somehow understood. "This human, this Nathan Hale, I am going to marry this man." The hall erupted. Beings of all shapes and sizes gasped, whispered, and stared. The attendants exchanged worried glances. The princess had never spoken such words in public, let alone about a human. Humans were small, fragile, and often unpredictable, and yet here she was declaring that she wanted Nathan for herself. Nathan's mouth went dry. He opened it, then closed it again, unsure what to say. I think there's been a mistake," he said finally in English. Cathara's smile widened, radiant and warm, as if she understood perfectly. She tilted her head slightly, the glow around her intensifying. The attendants rushed to her side, whispering and gesturing frantically. One of them hovered closer to Nathan, speaking in the universal translator that had been set up for him. "Princess, humans are not suitable. They are weak, unpredictable, not ready for this." Nathan swallowed. He wanted to explain himself, to say something that would convince them that he was just a simple diplomat, but he had no words. And in that moment, Cathara spoke again. The translator flickered and translated her words. "Then perhaps the galaxy needs a little of his fragility." Fragility. The word sounded strange, almost like a compliment when it came from her. Nathan felt a strange warmth in his chest. He realized she had seen something in him, not just as a human, but as a person. She had seen courage where others saw weakness, humor where others saw simplicity, and perhaps she had seen hope. Over the next few cycles, Nathan found himself swept into the complex life of the Thalari court. Every day was a lesson in alien etiquette, diplomacy, and the intricate dance of social expectation. But despite the difficulty, Nathan began to notice small things. He noticed the servants who moved quietly, almost unseen, yet worked tirelessly to keep the court running. He noticed the scholars who spoke softly, their ideas brilliant but often ignored by those in power. And he noticed the princess who would occasionally look at him with those curious eyes, as if asking him to see the world differently. Nathan realized that the Thalri were brilliant. Yes, but their brilliance came with rigidity. They were so focused on perfection and protocol that they often forgot the simple joys of life. The laughter of friends, the thrill of discovery, the beauty of imperfection. Nathan, in his plain human way, began to show them that life could be different. It started with small things. He told a story of Earth's oceans and mountains, of forests that stretched farther than the eye could see. He described the laughter of children and the smell of rain on dry soil. The court listened politely at first, but slowly their interest grew. Cathara would often float closer, her light flickering with amusement. Sometimes she would laugh softly at Nathan's clumsy attempts to explain human customs. And each time she laughed, Nathan felt a little braver, a little more confident. One evening, the princess took Nathan on a tour of the palace gardens. The gardens were unlike anything he had ever seen. Plants glowed softly in the dark. Floating petals drifted on invisible currents, and streams of light twisted through the air like water. Nathan walked carefully, trying not to step on anything, but Cathara simply floated beside him, her presence warm and reassuring. "Why do you enjoy these small things so much?" she asked. Her voice was gentle, curious. Nathan thought for a moment. "Because they remind me that the universe isn't just about rules or power. It's about connection, about noticing the little things that make life." Life. Cathara considered this, her light dimming and brightening as if she were thinking in color. "You see what others do not," she said finally. "And perhaps that is why I chose you." Nathan blinked. He had not expected this. He had come to the Thalri Empire as a diplomat, a representative of humanity. And somehow he had become more than that. He was a teacher, a bridge between worlds, and somehow the heart of the princess herself. Word spread quickly through the empire about the human who had captured the princess's attention. Delegates who had once scoffed at humans began to treat Nathan with respect. Children in the palace began to follow him, fascinated by his stories and gestures. Even the scholars who had been ignored for centuries found themselves drawn to him, curious about his perspective. Nathan realized that his presence was changing the Thalri in ways he had never imagined. They were becoming more open, more willing to embrace the unpredictable, the imperfect, and the human. And through it all, Cathara was there, her eyes bright with laughter and thought, her hand sometimes brushing against his in a quiet, deliberate gesture. One day, as Nathan prepared for a diplomatic meeting, Cathara floated into his chamber. She looked at him seriously, her light steady and warm. "You have changed more than you know," she said, "and I want the galaxy to see what I see in you." Nathan felt a mixture of pride and fear. He was just a human, after all. How could he influence a civilization so vast and ancient? But as he looked into her eyes, he realized that maybe he didn't have to be perfect. Maybe being human, with all its flaws and fragility, was enough. And so, with the weight of the Thalri Empire beginning to shift, Nathan prepared to step forward, not as a diplomat, but as someone who could show the galaxy a different way, a way that embraced laughter, empathy, and the courage to be oneself no matter how small one seemed. The next few cycles in the Thalri court passed in a whirlwind of colors, lights, and strange, beautiful sounds. Nathan found himself more at home than he expected, though he still stumbled through alien etiquette from time to time. Every gesture, every word seemed to carry weight in a society so precise, but Cathara was always nearby, watching him with that curious, sparkling gaze, ready to defend him if the court whispered too harshly. Nathan often wondered how she could be so patient yet so determined. It became clear that the declaration she had made in the Grand Convergence was only the beginning. The High Council of the Thalri had been cautious at first. Humans were unpredictable, and unpredictability was considered dangerous. Yet Nathan's simple acts, helping a lost delegate find their way, listening carefully to the concerns of palace staff, or even laughing in the midst of tense negotiations, had begun to ripple through the court in ways no one expected. Slowly, he earned respect, not through power, but through attention, care, and empathy. One morning, Nathan was walking through the palace gardens when Cathara appeared beside him. She was glowing softly, her light reflecting off the floating petals and streams of iridescent mist. She did not speak at first, only moved with him through the twisting paths of glowing flora. Nathan looked at the garden, marveling at the sight. The Thalri had mastered beauty beyond imagination, yet in all its perfection, the garden felt alive with a quiet sense of chaos, the same sense of life Nathan often saw on Earth. "You have changed them," Cathara said finally, her voice gentle. "The court, the delegates, even the High Council, they see possibilities where once there were rules. They see hope." Nathan hesitated, unsure what to say. "I don't know if I've done much. I've just tried to notice things, the small things, the things people often ignore." Cathara's eyes glimmered brighter than the morning light filtering through the gardens. "That is enough. That is more than enough." Nathan smiled, though he felt the weight of what lay ahead. His presence had already begun to influence the Empire, but he understood that there were still challenges to come. A union between a human and a Thalri princess was unprecedented. Some would resist, some would misunderstand, and some would even try to test the limits of his courage. But Nathan knew deep in his heart that Cathara's faith in him was stronger than any obstacle. The first real test came during a gathering of the High Council. Nathan was invited to observe, not as a diplomat but as Cathara's companion. As he entered the council chamber, he saw rows of shimmering Thalri delegates, their expressions serious and unreadable. The air was filled with tension, a quiet vibration that Nathan could feel against his skin. The council began their discussion, debating a proposal to expand the Thalri influence into unclaimed star systems. It was an important decision, one that required careful reasoning and diplomacy. Nathan listened, fascinated by the precision of their arguments but also by the subtle ways emotion and ego influenced the discussion. Finally, Cathara spoke, presenting Nathan's perspective as an example of clarity through simplicity. "Humans," she said, "see value not only in power or strategy but in connection, understanding, and empathy. Nathan has shown us that even a being we consider fragile can inspire thought and unity where we see conflict and doubt." The council was silent. Nathan felt every eye on him, and for a moment he feared he had overstepped. But then, one by one, the delegates began nodding. Some murmured quietly, others exchanged glances, and slowly their rigid expressions softened. Nathan realized that Cathara's words were bridging worlds. His humanity, his simple curiosity, his willingness to care was changing centuries of tradition. In the following cycles, Nathan began to take on more responsibilities. He was asked to observe diplomatic negotiations, offer advice, and even help design cultural exchanges between planets. Every time he spoke, he relied not on force or authority, but on understanding and kindness. And every time Cathara was there, her presence quiet but unwavering. One day, Nathan was walking along a balcony that overlooked the city of Thalari's capital world. The towers of light stretched into the sky, glowing with the soft colors of the twin suns. Cathara joined him, her form radiant in the afternoon glow. She had been unusually quiet that day, her light dimmer than usual, and Nathan sensed a seriousness in her tone that made his chest tighten. "They are still afraid," she said softly, her voice almost lost in the hum of the city below. "Some delegates do not trust humans, and some fear what this union might mean for the Empire. There will be challenges, Nathan, but I have chosen you because I know you can face them, not with strength, but with who you are." Nathan took a deep breath. "I'll try. I can't promise I'll always know the right thing to do, but I'll do my best." Cathara smiled, brighter now, and touched his hand lightly. "That is enough. That is always enough." As the days passed, the Thalri began to embrace small human customs Nathan shared, things like laughing at mistakes, sharing meals with servants, and storytelling late into the night. Children of the palace began to follow him, asking him endless questions about Earth, about humans, about the strange, imperfect, vibrant lives people led. Scholars who had been ignored for decades now sought his opinion, fascinated by the simplicity of his reasoning and the depth of his empathy. Nathan began to realize that the influence of humanity was not in technology or power, but in perspective. The Thalri were brilliant, but brilliance alone did not make them whole. It was Nathan's human way of noticing small details, of valuing relationships, and of seeing possibility where others saw limitations. that was reshaping an empire. One evening, Cathara invited Nathan to the observation terrace, a place where the stars seemed close enough to touch. They stood together, watching the constellations shift across the night sky. Nathan marveled at the view, feeling the weight of the moment. "You have changed the empire, Nathan," Cathara said quietly. "Not with power, not with strategy, but with your heart. You have reminded us that life is not just rules and duty. It is connection, it is curiosity, it is courage to be oneself." Nathan felt a warmth spread through him. "I've just been me. You've helped me more than I've helped anyone else. You saw something in me I didn't even see." Cathara reached for his hand, her light intertwining with his own warmth. "And that is why I chose you. You are human, fragile, and yet capable of so much. Together we will show the galaxy a new way, one where empathy and understanding can change even the oldest traditions." As the stars shifted above them, Nathan realized the truth in her words. He had not expected to become royalty, or to lead a quiet revolution of thought and culture. He had only intended to represent humanity with dignity. But now, standing beside the princess, he understood that being human, imperfect, curious, empathetic, was more powerful than he had ever imagined. The next cycle brought the most important event of all, the announcement of the Union. The palace gathered, and beings from countless star systems filled the great hall. The air shimmered with anticipation, excitement, and the gentle hum of countless voices. Nathan stood beside Cathara, feeling the weight of countless eyes upon him, and yet feeling safe in her presence. Cathara spoke first, her voice clear and resonant. "Today, we celebrate not only our bond but the possibility of connection across worlds. Nathan Hale, a human, has shown us that courage is not in power but in empathy, that joy is found not in perfection but in curiosity, and that hope can change even the most ancient traditions." Nathan felt a surge of emotion, a mixture of pride, gratitude, and wonder. He looked around the hall, seeing the delegates nod, the scholars smile, and the children look up with wide eyes. And then he looked at Cathara, her hand in his, her light brighter than ever. "Let us walk this path together," she said. "Not as ruler and subject, not as alien and human, but as companions, as friends, and as partners in shaping a better galaxy." Nathan nodded, feeling the truth of her words in every fiber of his being. He realized that this was what humans could bring to the universe, not domination, not conquest, but understanding, kindness, and courage to be oneself. The ceremony concluded with a simple gesture, a handshake, a human custom Nathan had explained to Cathara months before. But it was more than a gesture. It was a symbol of connection, trust, and unity between two worlds. As Nathan shook the princess's hand, the crowd erupted in applause, laughter, and light, celebrating not just a union of beings, but a union of perspectives, of cultures, and of hope. And in that moment, Nathan understood the full meaning of the words Cathara had spoken at the Grand Convergence. They were not about him alone. They were about the potential of humanity to touch the stars, not with force, but with heart. The human made the princess laugh, and in doing so changed the galaxy forever.